having today.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar Malik, for joining us. I see you're here with us now. And we started a conversation already, and we were basically talking about the World Bank report that Scott did last year on the specifically starting point is the spectrum and the 5G readiness and what are the gaps that are there and what's needed for Pakistan to move in that direction. So I've already had the other panelists comment on it as well, since now you've come on board as well. So would you like to say something on that? Because I believe you're familiar with that report and you know that what are the findings that came through and the recommendations that Scott and the World Bank gave in that report.
Thank you, Atifa. We have gone comprehensively with the World Bank, specifically with Scott in details, and the industry with each and every stakeholders for consultation before putting the report forward. The report is quite neutral, like it has the pros and the cons, has the positive and the negative both. So we have to look into the report in a holistic way because there's certain pointer identification in the verticals that can hinder the launch of 5G networks in Pakistan. So multiple things were clearly mentioned, like these showstoppers or bottlenecks can have consequences if not addressed properly by the government. So I'll appreciate Scott and the World Bank for the report. And there are multiple angles and dimensions they have mentioned. Moving forward, like as Mr. Lewis was pointing out, the spectrum pricing and the mechanism for different countries that we have seen, they have gone for the spectrum auction recently, South Africa, plus USA and certain other South Asian countries. The point is the rationalization of the pricing mechanism, which shall be dynamic. That is based on, the World Bank study plus the input from the industry. That is one important point to have a sales-based economic model instead of looking at a spectrum as monetization for the government. So there are multiple approaches we're going to look for after this report. The consultancy with the CMOs and the stakeholders were conducted. Now there shall be a second round of consultancy with each and every stakeholders to have their feedback before a policy directive is issued. So a dynamic model shall be adoptable and more proportionate to the Pakistan overall technological environment for 5G launch, instead of the legacy model that was previously followed in the last 4 or 5 spectrums. I'll put few words further that not only the spectrum pricing is a vertical, there are certain other verticals which are important once we talk about the 5G technology launch in Pakistan. I'm not specifically pointing about this 5G spectrum allocation or release in Pakistan. Once we talk about the technology launch, there are multiple verticals that also needs to be addressed. And how we can attract and make a investment friendly and sales based model. So the spectrum can be released as per the demand of the market, and to make it more attractive, we can make it dynamic in terms of verticals that are the duration of the license, in terms of the upfront payment, means there are multiple ways we can do that. So these models will also be discussed with the stakeholders to make it all inclusive. The purpose for this, discussion with all the stakeholders is to have an all-inclusive approach, to have a win-win situation for the industry as well as for the users, consumers, and the government as well. So these three will be blended together. And this spectrum auction, I'm sure it will be far different from the auctions being conducted in Pakistan previously.
Thank you, Omar Sahab. It's heartening to see that you're planning to keep, to bring everybody on board and to see, the industry, the consumers and the government to come up with a much better and robust policy for 5G going forward. You were mentioning something about the verticals. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I didn't understand which verticals were you specifically referring to?
Once we talk about verticals and the 5G technology, it means like spectrum is one vertical. Then we have the device segment and the user equipment segment. That is the second vertical. Then we have, the optic fiber connectivity to the sites. That's a separate vertical. Then we have, the user basically per capita income. That is another vertical as well. Then we have, the market appetite for the 5G technology. That's the fifth vertical. Then we talk about, the international, players that are going to be interested. That's a separate vertical. Then there are more than 20 verticals I can straight away mention, like over here, if you go into the details. So there are multiple dimensions we have to look into that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. So basically what it tells us is that you're looking at it from an overall holistic point of view and not just from a very narrow lens. So I appreciate that. And I'm just going to touch on one vertical very quickly. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's related with transmission and it's very important from a 5G technology point of view as well. Mursab, as you know, that in Pakistan, less than 10% of the towers are on fiber optics at the moment, right? So how are you trying to, is there a specific, I don't know, steps you guys are taking from a policy point of view, from any other strategy point of view, in order to see how can we have more fiber in the country from a transmission point of view, so that the latest technology can be more up to speed, if I'm correct in saying that?
At the moment, as we speak today, we have a deployment of 125,000 kilometers of fiber currently being in place in Pakistan. And the penetration for fiber in terms of tower or BTS or G node B connectivity is 10% approximately. So we just opened a regime for LDI. PT are issuing the license for that, has fiber obligation as well. On the top of that, for fiberization, in the broadband policy, we have recently discussed 2-3 weeks back with all the stakeholders that we are opening a regime for neutral tower core regime in Pakistan, where it will be a mandatory clause like these fiber companies and the infra companies. They shall be connecting all the towers. And we are also in discussion for first right of refusal as well for neutral tower core companies and the number of licenses to be in place. So this is a long pending problem, but the solution which we have mentioned, it's not something new, like most of the world has already deployed that. They have the same neutral tower core regime. So that is coming in the national broadband policy under consultation with the industry as well.
Thank you for that, Omar. Okay, I'm now going to move I'm going to shift from the spectrum point of view to, because we need to talk about 5G.